Alright, so this is part 3 of replacing jQuery with Vue.js, so I'm just going to go through it. So what we have here is basically the login side of things, so we can log in a user. Let's say I put any password wrong, we get an error, user login failed, but we put any password correctly and, well, that didn't work. Alright, we should see this message, successfully logged in, please wait, redirecting, and then we redirect to the page. We have some user information with name and the email, and then this is just some basic stuff, and then we could press the logout button to log out, right? If you was to go to the dashboard, you'd realize they say user not logged in, and you can click login here. Alright, so I'm just going to show you how we did that. So this is the login HTML page. We just have our basic, we put in our Bootstrap and our CSS and Vue, and then the notifications. We just have a basic HTML, which is a basic form for Bootstrap. We have on V submit, we have login user, and that's basically all we need. We can go down here, we create our notifications. We have sleep, I'll show you what we did with that later, and then this is where we create the Vue object. Remember, Vue object, we have the app ID here. Alright, so we have the app ID here. We're not using before create, we're not using created. We have our data, which is just username and password, which is the V models that we put in the form. V model, username and password. Then we have a base API, which is user API. And then for logging in, so this is the function that we call when we submit the form. So login user, prevent default, we get the form data and we pass it to the action login user, and I'll show you that on the back end. And basically, if we get a good response, we say message is successfully logged in, and then we have a sleep function here, and then we use window location href to redirect to the dashboard. Otherwise, we say error and we show the error message. Alright, so this is the function, unnecessary my code from Stack Overflow that we use to sleep, and then all you have to do is put in the time, and we have a callback. Alright, so that's basically all we do in there. And so you have a time, and then we say when it's finished, because we returned a promise, then we just redirect. It's pretty cool. I like how it works. Alright, so let's look at the server side of things. So we have a function here, start a session. I used this before, and then we have user logged in, and then we have get user ID. Alright, and then we have our JSON response function, and then we started a session as soon as we start a request. Alright, so you just look at that as to make sure that a session has been started already, and we call start session for PHP and all the versions of PHP. So login user, basically all we're doing is we get a username and the password, and we're checking to see if we have any users by that email. And if you have users, we say, hey, we have users, we do password verify based on the password that we submit, and then we return user is logged in, otherwise user is login fail. Alright, notice in our DB model we actually added a function called getAll by SQL, where we just pass in the SQL and get the results, which is pretty simple. So this is all it is. We just get to pass in SQL and any parameters, and we get the results. Alright, so basically we're just using this connection from our class, and we call in fetch all on it. Alright, if the password is correct, we have the session username and session user ID. So this is how we create our session, and then is user logged in, we check to see if username and ID is set, and then also in get user ID, we get the user ID from the session variable. This is our basic login function. Now we're going to look at how we do the dashboard. So let's just go into the dashboard side of things. We're going to log in again. So as soon as we log in and we go through the redirection process, we just have a message here. So I'm just going to show you where we get our message from. This is in dashboard HTML. So in dashboard HTML, we have the same setup. We have our basic notifications, Vue, Bootstrap. Alright, and we have our notification here. We create our Vue object, and on created we say get user info, and get user info, which we call in the base URL, which is the same user API, and we call in the get user. So all this does is set a variable this user to the response. Alright, so we have data response message, and this user is what we create here, no user, and we can look at it here. So to pay attention, we have v.html, which is like a binding for Vue, which allows us to pass in the HTML here. Right, so we're not doing the normal curly brackets, we're using v.html. So that was pretty cool. That was a new thing for me. Alright, also we have the v on click logout user. So we just look at logout user, we call the action logout user, and once it's successful, it logs out the user calling window location href. This is not necessary, otherwise we send back the message, whatever the error message might be. So let's look at user API. So for those two functions, we have get user, we just select from users, we call the same getAll by SQL, and once we get the user, we say, hey, let's create some information here, and the little information object. So we have O, and we say user information name, and information and email, and then we just return it, all right? So this has HTML in it, which is why we needed VHTML, right? Because we pass in HTML from our JSON response, all right? And the same thing for when the user is not logged in. If you try to access the page and the user is not logged in, it will tell us, hey, the user is not logged in, you probably should log in now, and that has HTML in it. So again, that's why we needed the VHTML, all right? So that is that. Logging out user, all it calls is session onset and session destroy, and then responds with a message grid. And so now we could log in and log out a user. So that's kind of basically it. The next part is we're going to actually try to create an actual project to see with all the features. So we're going to be able to log in and log out user, and then we're going to have like a dashboard and a list of something, and we'll be able to add stuff to a database and delete and edit and stuff. Delete and edit things from the database and see how all that works. So that's the next step. So that'll be part 3. All right, thanks for watching.